Hi, it's Alexander Russo from The Grade, and this is the Education Show. I'm so excited to be here today with California lawyer, mom, and citizen journalist Laura Powell, who was all over the Ian Roberts Des Moines Public Schools story from a couple of weeks ago. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Thanks for having me on.
I thought that you were leading the coverage, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and about the essay you wrote for The Grade. Thank you so much for doing that. Remind me though, where were you or where did you first see that there was a person named Ian Roberts and he might not be who he said he was?
There was a headline I saw on Twitter Friday afternoon about an illegal alien who was a superintendent and had been arrested. And I assumed that there was going to be more to the story, that the headline was maybe misleading. The story wasn't what it sounded like. But I was curious to see if I could get more information because there were a lot of unanswered questions. And then I started poking around and it looked more and more like the story was what it sounded like. And actually, some of the details were even crazier than you might have imagined. It really seemed like something that would make a great book or a movie, the whole saga of this guy's life. And that was Friday afternoon. I was going to pick up my kid, go to an appointment. I was dying to dig into poking around on the internet to see what I could find. And barely had time, but started kind of putting it out as I was finding things in a long thread that I put together.
It's an amazing story, and you definitely helped push it along. And some of this you detail in the essay. Tell me, though, one thing that we didn't get to in the essay was where you got most of your best information. Was it online? Was it from published accounts? Was it from private conversations?
Initially, everything it was just Googling. I guess I'm a little better at having a critical eye and getting through just lots of hits. It's just everything I can find on Ian Roberts and just looking at it to see if there's anything interesting there and just comparing a bio he had one place to a bio at another place and seeing the contradictions, just basic things like that, which to me was why it was such an indictment of the school boards that hired him, because this was just readily available if you just had a critical eye at all to look at the contradictions in his, even just his LinkedIn profile had a lot of red flags on it. But then as my reporting took off, people started sending me tips. So I definitely got some insider tips from people who knew him personally. And then some of that was harder to report because people wanted some privacy. And I also needed to make sure I could confirm what they were telling me. Other outlets, I don't get special treatment when I go to ask for documents. Like one aspect of the story, I had reported something on, sent out a public records request to the school board, and then waited. And then a couple days later, the AP reported a story with the documents from the school board that I had asked for. So, things like that, I can't get as quickly. And so I couldn't, if I can't confirm it, wasn't going to report it.
Right. One of the crazy things that journalists do, I've learned over the years, is that they FOIA requests. Have you heard about this?
No,
I
but
don't.
I thought about doing that actually.
Right.
It crossed my mind also, just to make the point that the email I got from the school board specifically said that they were responding to requests in the order they were received. And so that, kind of rubbed me the wrong way because it really didn't seem like I really doubted that the AP had put the request in
I,
before me.
I don't have any specific information. We could FOIA AP's FOIA requests, but I know that journalists do that to find out what other people are asking or who else is interested in the story.
Mhm.
One of the things that I was interested in, that also I didn't get to ask you about when we were working on the essay together, is how you worked out your sort of updating schedule. I saw you mostly on Twitter. I saw threads on Twitter. How did you just add to one big thread? Did you do a series of threads, and were you posting anywhere else?
No, I wasn't posting anywhere else. It's just too time consuming. And, it could be time consuming too. As I say in the essay, I really feel the need to give my receipts, as people call them, because people aren't going to just trust me. So I have to get screenshots, and just finding all the places I found this information, taking the screenshots, posting them is, time consuming enough. But really, I would just post things as I found it. And instead of saving it up, if I find something new, I'd post it. And then it does get complicated if you're on X. Do you want this all in one big thread? Because people don't tend to see those. That's initially what I ended up doing, is just putting everything in a long thread. But then as days passed, never thought I'd be, talking about this for weeks. But there was so much material. I just remembered things that I never got around to posting that would have been interesting. But there was just so much coming at me. But I started doing new posts, and then I would copy them into the thread so that people could find everything in one place if they were coming in late.
How did you? Sometimes I saw you said breaking news. I think you might have used the word scoop here and there. How did you decide what was breaking news and what was a scoop um, in relation to what other information people were putting out through official
Yeah.
news outlets?
I'm one of these people. I really don't like the breaking news thing on Twitter and people putting their alarms. But I realize if I don't do it, it's silly because it does get more attention. Because it rubs me the wrong way. I will definitely see people post things that are not breaking news with the big, more often than not, that's the case. But if it was like within an hour of something happening, if I hadn't seen it reported yet, but really, I mean, often if it's like within an hour, I will put that out. I think there was only one time I said an exclusive because I was fairly confident that nobody knew that information, because I got it from an inside source. And when I called the sheriff's department to confirm, I mean, it was a funny conversation. The guy said, "Yeah, I don't think that's right." I said, "Did you serve this protective order?" He said, "I don't think so. We don't do things like that." I said, "Well, I have a source that says you did." He goes, "I'll check on it, but I'm not going to find anything." And he calls back and says, "Well, I can't believe this, but you were right." And he's, "Great. Now my phone's going to be ringing now that this is out there." So I was fairly confident I was the only person who had that information. And then of course other people picked it up, but it didn't give me credit.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. I know that you were credited at least once in the Des Moines Register by someone, a journalist who read your story and references to your work on Twitter. Did you actually have any exchanges, direct, electronic, or personal exchanges with journalists? And did you have any sense that they were working along with you, sort of crowdsourcing the story?
No, no, nobody reached. Well, I did, and that's right, I forgot to answer. I saw more recently there was one message from one person, um, who had mentioned, since we wrote this, more recently, I got one message from somebody saying, appreciate what you're doing. But other than that, no.
Uh,
Um,
you heard from a journalist.
yes,
Oh,
from a
interesting.
smaller publication who just said, yeah, I was following what you were doing. Appreciate it, but I wouldn't say anything publicly, and don't tell anybody I see this message.
Yeah. Well, part of what the grade is by and for education journalists, people who were probably editors of their school newspapers and have been in journalism a long time and are focused on schools. Part of what we're trying to do, and what I think you're doing even better than anything I could do, is to remind folks that gathering accurate information and relaying it to the public isn't traditional journalists, God-given right or exclusive right, and that other people can do it. There is a us versus them attitude sometimes that I get or I sense. And I'm also not a traditional journalist. I've been doing this for 25 years now, but I didn't go to journalism school, and I actually started out doing politics. But it seems like there's a lesson here for journalists. How would you describe the lesson if you were talking to a room full of reporters right now?
Well, the sense I'm getting in particular in this story is that the public has a lot of distrust of their local media. That was the sense I got from the people in Des Moines who were reaching out to me. And so, there's a lot of sources I got really just because people didn't like the media. And, I have one source I talked to a lot who, he called me. He said, "I've been getting all these phone calls after I had put my exclusive out there," and he was involved in the story. And he said he wasn't going to talk to anybody. And he was getting really upset too that a reporter from a major publication was calling him too much, and and he didn't want anything to do with it. But I think it's because yeah, they're not seen as trustworthy, seen as working with the, people like the school board, to put out the story they want instead of challenging them. So that's why I was getting a lot of support from people in Des Moines, because they felt like I was really challenging the politicians who were not telling the truth.
One last question, and then everyone needs to go read your essay about this experience. How did the Ian Roberts story work differently for you than previous issues you've investigated? This is not your first rodeo when it comes to gathering information and sharing it on Twitter. Did you learn anything? Was there anything different about this one focused on schools than other ones that haven't been?
Well, one thing that was different, I did kind of, become this citizen journalist at times when I happened to find something interesting. But this story ended up getting picked up by, all the major publications, which doesn't always happen, because right now I feel like there's such a partisan divide where stories are either considered right wing or left wing, and they're not followed by the other side. And so, when I did a story on a nonprofit that was involved in the tied to the Los Angeles anti-ICE riots, that got picked up by conservative media and not by the rest of it. So this one, I guess it was too big for them to ignore, also too interesting because this guy's such a character. So it did get picked up. So that's where I got to see where I wasn't getting credited, and all this stuff that was going on and how they were reporting the story differently. The local media was reporting it differently too.
Were in previous instances, were right-wing news outlets any better at crediting you and your work than mainstream or left-wing outlets? Was that
Um,
part any different?
I think so, somewhat. I mean, I think also what happens is you go viral on a story. I mean, I broke a story, then it went viral, and then people maybe don't know where it started, when it's public information that anybody can look up. So initially, people are crediting me, but then I think everybody ended up just knowing about this story and didn't know where they had heard it from. But and I did a few interviews on that story too with various podcasts. So yeah, I think I got sufficient credit for how things work on the internet these days.
Well, I hope you get credit that you deserve for your work on this story. I really appreciate you being here. I really appreciate you writing the essay about how you pulled it off. Laura Powell, thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you, and thank you for giving me credit.
Well deserved.
Thanks.